Well, now, if you earn yourself a salary of less than 50,000 Kenyan shillings at the end of the month, by the way, let me say that in dollars, that's like $400 or 420, dollars at the end of the month. Yeah. If you earn that amount of money per month, then this is what you're supposed to do. Immediately end ASAP as far as your life of finance is concerned. Okay. By the way, before you do that, let me just say thank you for always standing back and coming to watch my videos, and thank you for your eyeballs. And by the way, if you always watch my video and you have never liked the video, come on, you know what, just like the video. And also, by the way, click that subscription button that is down below. It's black in color. Just click that button and also comment down below. Let me know what you think. I'm a believer, just like an iron sharpens another iron, so we learn from each other. Let's get to the business now. Before I even write anything on the board here you have your 50,000 or less than 50,000 Kenyan shillings as your salary, or should I call it $420 at the end of the month. Now, you know one thing, statistically speaking, in Kenya, you are regarded as a low income. Why? Because above 48,000 Kenyan shillings, if you earn 48,000 Kenyan shillings per month, all the way up to 200K per month, you're regarded as a what? As a middle incomer. Middle incomer, okay? And obviously, you know what happens with this middle incomer. These are the people who lives in a flashy lives and all those kind of things, the suburbs and what have you. So if you earn yourself less than 50,000 Kenyan shillings, okay? Maybe let's say you earn maybe from 45,000 all the way below to, logically speaking, there's some people even earn 8,000 Kenyan shillings a month, okay? Maybe you just completed your high school, you have somewhere, you've gotten a house or something of sort. Now, this is the amount of money that you have now. Today we are talking about 50,000 Kenyan shillings at the end of the month and below. Now, what are you supposed to do? First of all, let me just burst this bubble. You are not a middle incomer. You are a low incomer. Okay. Now, so these are the things that you're supposed to do. We call them the do's and don'ts. The do's and the what? We have the do's and we have the don'ts. So what are the, let's start with the don'ts first. What are the don'ts? So first of all, I always tell people, it is good to understand there are two things that are classified in your life. We have what we call what we call them, you see, both of them fall under the expenditures. Yeah, they are expenditures. They are expenditures. But under these expenditures, we have one category of things that are called sustainabilities or sustainables. And number two, we have something called the developments. Okay, the developments. Okay. Now, the point is this: with this amount of money, you are guided by what you earn for what you're supposed or where you are supposed to spend your money. Number one, let's start with what we call the recurrent expenditure. How much are you supposed to pay where and what? Okay. Now, for example, number one, we go to the rent. Okay, rent. Obviously, this is accommodation. This is a very vital thing. By the way, in Kenya, this is a very emotive issue. So anyway, rent here is okay. Now, one thing that you're supposed to understand, we go by the rule of thumb. What does it say? It says that you're not supposed to pay over 30% of your total income to what? Towards your what? Towards your rent. So what does it mean? Then what are you supposed to direct to this? If you ask me financially, if you ask me honestly speaking, your rent should not go beyond 13,000. It should not go beyond 13,000 Kenyan shillings a month. If you can be able to pull your rent below this amount of money. Why? Because if you go ahead and check what is 15% of 50,000, that's like 15,000. Okay? That's sorry, 30% of 50,000, that would be like 15,000. So now if you can manage to pull this figure to up to 13,000, that would be the greatest thing. But now the most weird thing, you find somebody is earning this amount of money and he or she has a rent of over 20,000 Kenyan shillings. Now you wonder, if you can actually take over 20,000 Kenyan shillings towards paying your rent, then you're going to get yourself into distractions. For example, I always tell people, if you would like to know whether you're doing the right thing, you should not use more than 10 days. More than, okay, fine. If you do at least 10 days to pay your rent. Can you imagine this? A month is made up of 30 days. A month is made up of 30 days. Now here you are. If you actually paying this amount of money, do you know what percentage is this? This is close to 40%. Actually, this is 40% of 20,000. Now, 40% of 20,000, what does it mean? You're actually distracting yourself. So one thing that you're supposed to understand, so if you can be able to pull your rent to be at least this amount of money, then that's amazing. Then when it comes to food and other kind of things, I always say, hey, it can actually draw close to things. Probably we can put it at 13,000 as well. We can put it at that amount of money because, hey, a lot of things are actually rising in prices, okay? Now already you have actually killed over half of your money. Already 26,000 is gone. 26,000 is gone. 50% is gone. You see, when you pay your rent and pay your what? and you pay for your food. By the way, we have not paid the utilities. We have not paid for the for things like maybe Wi-Fi or those kind of things. We have not paid for the transport and what have you. If you can be able to dedicate again another percentage of this amount of money, I say if you're paying a house rent that is worth 13,000, okay, you are not supposed to pay, as you're supposed to pay at least a third of that amount of money for your utilities. 13,000, a third of that. So a third of that will give you like approximately, how much is that? Like 3,000 or 4,000, let's call it at 4,000, okay? At 4,000, those are your utilities. You pay for your utilities, now you are at 30,000. Now, if you are now at your 30,000, you are now remaining with 20,000. Remember one thing, we have not saved nothing. And I always recommend, if you want to save something, as far as you're earning this amount of money, dedicate at least 20% of what you earn at the end of the month. So 20% of 50,000, that is, you're right. That is correct. That is 10,000 Kenyan shillings. This is what you're supposed to dedicate towards your savings. Now, here you have your 20,000. Now, if you can be able to save 10,000 at the end of the month, and I usually have a rule called 4-1. It's called a 4-1 rule. A 4-1 rule, it says whenever you are actually saving your money, you're supposed to use 4 months to accumulate that amount of money that is equivalent to that what you earn in a single month. Come on, did I miss you? Did I lose you? I'm saying if you can actually use 4 months cumulatively to save that amount of money that is equivalent to that what you earn per month. It's called the 4-1 rule. Okay, but now if you go by the 10,000 Kenyan shilling savings, guess what will happen if you earn 50,000? Then it means that this 10,000 multiplied by 4, you'll have yourself 40,000 in place of what? In place of 50,000. So you're 10,000 short. So where do you capture that 10,000? So if you were to add 2,000 on top of this, so 2,000 multiplied by 30, that will give you 6,000. So you're still short. So if you were to save 13,000, then what does it mean? Then you can actually achieve that target. And where are we heading? I always tell people, if it is possible, you can actually save that amount of money that you usually pay for your rent. That is the most amazing thing. What does it mean? So if I was to go ahead and add 3,000 on top of this 10,000, then I'll be able to save myself 13,000. Okay. And if you're following me closely, you will realize now the amount of money that I'm saving is equivalent to that what I'm actually paying for my rent. Now, if you can really dedicate yourself into paying a rent each and every day without failing, and if you have to fail, then it goes by 2 days or 3 days, then you pay back. Then why don't you then give yourself that challenge? Say, hey, guess what? Each and every month I have to part ways with 5,000. Each and every month I have to part ways with 20,000 to pay somebody for me to reside in his or her place. Why don't you do this then? Why don't I squeeze myself? If I can manage to pay a house rent worth 20,000, why don't I go ahead and be able to do the best that I can to as well save that amount of money each and every month? It's like you're paying house rent double. That is exactly what you do. Because if you go by this rate multiplied by 30, then you have yourself a what? You have yourself 50,000. And if it's not 50, then close to that. Give or take. It's around that figure. All right? Then that is exactly what you're supposed to do. Guess what now we've done? We've actually paid for our rent. We've done our food. We've done what we call our utilities. Now, what's remaining is actually 7,000 out of our budget. Now, that one you can actually dedicate it towards your what? You can dedicate it towards your transport and other necessities. But again, I know one thing. Whatever I've written on this board, I know it is easier said than done. Absolutely. So don't comment on the section and say, hey, just if it is easier said than done. Absolutely. I did promise it is easier done than said. That's for a fact. But what you're supposed to understand is this. Not every time that everything remains constant. You can adjust on the food section. Maybe rent is a bit hard. Maybe on the food section, you can actually adjust it. Maybe on the utilities, you can be able to adjust it. And maybe you can actually improve or actually increase that 7,000 that is being remaining out there to cater for your transport. Maybe you can adjust on your black tax. Maybe you can adjust on those kind of areas. But the point is this, if you earn below this amount of money, let me just bust the bubble and tell you the truth. This is amount of money that you're supposed to channel towards. This is a money that you're supposed to make sure that you have a certain percentage that you can channel towards a savings for the purposes of investing. That's for sure. And this amount of money that you're saving at the end of the month, this is what I would advise you to do, because it's not just saving that makes you rich and wealthy. No, that money, okay, fine. If you're accumulating some money in a bank, so that at least you can raise a certain figure for you to do a certain thing, well and good. There is no harm with that. But one thing that you're supposed to understand, if you just save in the name of you just want to accumulate, that is not the route to become, If you read a certain book by, I don't know, it's MJ DeMarco, a very wonderful book called The Millionaire's Fast Lane. You know, there are three lanes. We have the sidewalk, we have the, I don't know, the other lane, and then we have the fast lane. So it depends on what route that you're actually using for you to achieve the success. So if you buy this analogy, if you buy this idea that by virtue of you saving, then you're going to be wealthy, that is not the case. And if you will be, then it will take you like a century. And I mean, seriously, tell me who lives in under of a century in this our lifetime? Very low. So the point is this amount of money that you're actually accumulating each and every month as your savings, it can be 13,000 or slightly below 13,000. Depends on how. Hey, use whatever I'm saying here. Don't just take anything and truncate it. Adjust according to your life. And again, you adjust according to your life in the sense that you are actually justifiable what you're doing. You know, you can actually justify and accommodate you misusing the money. That's not what I'm calling for. Okay. Now, see, if you do exactly this, now what happens is that this amount of money you can channel towards an investment directly. Nowadays, you don't have to save then invest. You can just save while investing at the same time, and you pull all that thing up to the end. All right, then that is exactly what you do. Now the point is this: every time you manage to reach these 50 target savings, now that is the amount of money that you earn per month. Now you ask yourself, should I continue with what I'm savings or where I'm investing, or should I actually go ahead and try some businesses and try some gigs? And never forget this as I finish this video: the riskier it is, the higher returns it has. I repeat, the riskier it is, the higher returns it has. You have to understand that fact. That is the rule of the thumb. The riskier it is, the higher it. For example, honestly speaking, I would like. So if you were to be channeling 13,000 Kenyan shillings, okay, per month, let's say you put this money in a money market fund, in an MMF that is giving you a flat rate of say 10%, assuming maybe it was around 14%, they deducted their management fee, whatever, government taxes and whatever. So you get yourself like 10%. So 10% of 13,000, that will make you like 1,300. Okay. That is the year one, 1,300. So the year two will make the same, but now you see it's a compounding. Yeah? So compounding it to actually be able to make me more. Maybe it will be around 1,500. So the year two, you'll have yourself like 1,800. Okay. Obviously, this amount of money will really take a lot of time before you make a substantive amount of money in terms of development. That is what you're supposed to understand. So what I would recommend you to do is this: time to time, that what you have in your investment, check it up whether it can actually be used to do some businesses, which is actually a little bit risky, I agree, but can actually have some big returns. You can actually take the money and get yourself to learn a skill that you can be able to go ahead and monetize it and be able to make more money. All right. So anyway, don't just cling to the old traditional way. The reason why I always encourage you investing in these areas is far much better, and they caution you from what we call, it cautions you from what we call, the inflations and what have you. All right, guys. Anyway, that marks the end of my video, but don't forget, my number is always on the description of this specific video. Pick that number, shoot me a call. Let's have a conversation, because just like an iron sharpens another iron, so do we learn from each other. If you'd like to get a customized information, a customized plan, or customized, sort of a take through, then here I am. Pick that number. Let's talk. It's just a cup of coffee's price for now. It's a goodbye. See you in the next one.